Hey folks, Jeremy Plonk here with First Bet and Express Bet, and welcome in to the It's Official podcast created by Jeff Siegel. I'm your proud host each and every week, as 5 hot topics will be on the board once again, and we'll get right to it with our weekly Goosebump Award winner. This is the horse who got us most excited last week, got us out of our seat. It wasn't kind of one of those scintillating kind of victories, but in a week where it was a little quiet last week on the racing front, oversubscribed, coming off a 380-day layoff to win the Forever Together Stakes at Aqueduct, gets the call this week. Let's go back and check out the Chad Brown trainee in action.
The trailer, Miss Bonnie T. They reach the top of the lane. Mally Moo is ready to confront Spinning Colors, immediately off the rail and ready to pounce is oversubscribed. Oversubscribed. Mally Moo got the jump. Nice as pie. Grandstand side has got a run. It is still Mally Moo who's finding plenty. Now oversubscribed is trying to catch this leader. Mally Moo is game. Oversubscribed trying to push by. Now puts a nose in front. Oversubscribed almost there. Oversubscribed wins the Forever Together over Mally Moo, then Nice as Pie and Flowers for me in 1 minute 43.58 seconds.
Nice comeback win there for oversubscribed. Look, last year she was one of the better 3-year-old fillies on turf, second in the Pebbles, second in the Lake George, one of the top 10, you would say, in the country amongst the 3-year-old fillies. But now as a 4-year-old getting a late run back to the races, she's kind of set up for a 5-year-old campaign. Something like the Pegasus World Cup Turf could be in her crosshairs. And look, we've seen so many times over the years with Chad Brown and these turf fillies and mares, how he can really get an outstanding career out of them and get multiple years of success. Now, she basically missed her entire 4-year-old campaign. So this comeback win kind of sets her up as a fresh 5-year-old, if you will, with not a lot of tread on the tires. Now just with the 7 career starts. So 7 career starts now, 3 wins, 3 second place finishes, and oversubscribed. One to keep an eye on again, I think, for the Pegasus filly and mare turf as we hit late January. Should be set up nicely on timing for a race like that, and really an effective 5-year-old campaign till you get to Keeneland in the spring and all the good turf races for the distaffers. This is where you expect to see Chad Brown in heavy action. Of course, Brown doesn't have necessarily that fleet of fillies and mares on the grass this year that he's had in most seasons, so he's kind of looking to restock in that category. I know a bit more of his emphasis has been on the colts and the dirt horses compared to what his stable has been over the years, and of course, he's got Paladin and some others going towards the Triple Crown potentially next year. But again, for Chad Brown's barn, the meat and potatoes often for years has been these fillies and mares on the turf, and oversubscribed. Look like she could be one as a 5-year-old that we want to keep an eye on. She is the Goosebump Award winner from last week, the honor that Jeff Siegel inaugurated here earlier this year at the start of the season. We kick off each and every podcast with our Goosebump Award winner. Now let's talk our first big topic of the week. And boy, this was a strange one. Siren warning, all racing's not the same. And the reason we talk about a siren warning and the racing not being the same is, did you see what happened at Evangeline Downs last Saturday night? It was the AQHA meeting, quarter horses, but they were running an 870-yard race around the hook, as they say, around the turn. And there was an incident there that, frankly, none of us have ever seen before. And what a dangerous situation it could be as we look back to that race on Saturday night. It was the final race on the card. Now, watch as the horses go into the turn. Again, this is a turn race in quarter horse racing at 870 yards. You're going to see the track ambulance come in the opposite direction, right to the horses along the inside rail, no less. Not to the outside, and certainly coming into the traffic of the horses, not what you would expect to see. Again, on a head-on vision here, this was near disaster and catastrophe here. A good job by the jocks in here, who absolutely would not be expecting something like this to be oncoming, to get in and around there. What was going on with the driver? Who has any idea on that? They're not talking a lot out of Louisiana about the incident. There was no major steward's report. We would hope there would be some sort of longer-term investigation on that. Was this a regular ambulance driver? Was it somebody who hadn't done the job, and was on assignment that day? Look, in quarter horse racing, all the races up to that point in the night were on the straightaway. The gate up at the head of the stretch, the horses running down the length of the stretch, 250 to 400, 440 yards, those kind of distances. That was the 8th race on the card. It was the only two-turn race, or the only turn race, I should say, on the card at 870 yards. But you would expect the ambulance to be trailing the field, certainly not coming towards it, and certainly not on the inside. I mean, there was just so many errors on so many levels there. But not all racing being seeing the same here. I think the outrage and the social media fervor for this particular story is warranted and justified because it was an absolute potential catastrophe. But I've seen a lot of talk about, how this is kind of emblematic of some of the major problems we're seeing in racing. Starting gates placed at the wrong spot, those concerns with potential pass posting and things like that are going on in the wagering markets. This is a definite one-off instance that I don't believe has anything to do with a greater picture of the racing industry. And I don't think we want to be looking at tracks like Evangeline Downs during its quarter horse meet in the same light that we are with some of our major venues. Now, we've had major incidents. Remember in the Breeders' Cup just a couple years back when Modern Games ran and had to run for purse money only because inadvertent scratching and everything that went on with that particular horse in that race that was so screwed up in the juvenile turf. I mean, we can make major mistakes at the highest level in horse racing. We've proven it time and time again at the highest levels. But this race at Evangeline and the races that we see in the big money races around the country and the big venue races around the country, I think money is part of the problem. We'll talk about in just a second. But I don't think we want to be mixing these things together. Like if something happened in a high school football game or a Pop Warner football game, it's not indicative of something that happened in the NFL. And I think there's this mass, because we are such an insular group in horse racing, we get on our wagering platform and there's Evangeline Downs right next to Churchill Downs, right next to the Breeders' Cup, if you will, that we think these things are all together. But there's such a discrepancy in the level of organization, responsibility, talent, the people that are involved at these different levels. There are minor leagues, and a lot of these tracks that are minor leagues where an incident happens, everybody's quick to jump on them and easy to point fingers because that's not your neighbor. That's not your backyard when you talk about some of the elites, if you will, in horse racing and in horse racing media. So it's easy to jump on the little tracks when something egregiously horrible like this potentially could have happened. But this could happen at any track. But again, I don't think we want to lump the smaller tracks in with the larger tracks when we're talking about comparing what's going on in horse racing, because I think they're two completely different games and levels of expectation. When you get to the higher levels, the expectation is through the roof. Obviously, you wouldn't expect any time that an ambulance would be going, counter to the racing going on and on the inside rail. I mean, this is just such a horrible example of mistakes made at several different levels, protocols not in place. We can attack and go after HISA and some of their haphazardness in their rules, whether it becomes the whip rules, whether it's the drug infraction rules, medications that are legal, illegal, their bans, the time that they suspend some people other versus others. We can talk about that. Louisiana, not a HISA racing state, so no protocols in place for something like this, but I would bet good money there's not a protocol in place for this ambulance situation at a lot of places. I think there's a lot of an assumption going on there, and it's been this way for years, so we're going to continue to do it the way we do and just kind of self-train the people who are in these particular positions. I don't think there's a lot of detail, I shall say, in any kind of pre-planning for, events like this. So what protocols should have been in place? The track announcer didn't see the ambulance going the other direction. With the binoculars, he's focused on things. He can't necessarily stop the race, but as we see sometimes in incidents when horses go down, they'll phone up to the track announcer and call up to him from the steward's booth to halt the jockeys and to try to get their attention over the loudspeakers and get the race to stop for safety precautions. The track announcer didn't have that opportunity in this race. They had just broken from the starting gate going into the turn. Again, he's focused. Stewards obviously fall heavily on the sword here. They've got to see this far in advance that the ambulance is A, in the wrong place to start with before the race, and B, heading that direction. I mean, that's their job to keep the racing safe. And so to me, it really falls on the stewards in this particular case in the state of Louisiana. And as we see throughout the country, whether it's Louisiana, whether they're a HISA track or not, it's probably relevant to the conversation, because again, I don't think there's any HISA protocol in place for when an ambulance is going the wrong way on the racetrack. There probably will be now, and sometimes it takes these one-off incidents to get the attention to make a rule in any situation that people don't see coming ahead of time. But still, this is one of those where it falls on the stewards, but so many times the stewards are kind of above reprieve in all these positions around. It's a state racing commission that's probably got to step in and do something on this. Hopefully, the Louisiana Racing Commission will do the right thing, get in and find out exactly what happened, be open with the public, and take the action necessary to to find, suspend, fire those involved with the particular incident situation. Certainly the driver takes, first fault being in the wrong place and doing something that was, just boneheadedly dangerous, but there's also people that need to stop that from happening, including first and foremost the stewards there at Evangeline Downs and with the Louisiana Racing Commission. So, but again, we want to jump on these kind of things and incidents when they happen at the smaller racetracks. And if this event like this would have happened at a major racetrack in the country, it would have been absolutely catastrophic for everybody involved, not the incident itself being catastrophic. Luckily, nobody was injured in this particular incident, but it would have been a catastrophic PR event, right? It would have been blasted all over the place. The fact that it was Evangeline Downs probably softens the blow. If this happens in Southern California, batten down the hatches, right? I mean, there's no question about the way that would have been played out in New York the same way, and probably in Kentucky as well. So very interesting thing, incident that happened, very unfortunate, fortunate that no one was hurt. And other than the race being declared a no contest, it was the final race on the card, and some refunds given. There was no major problems other than the just tremendous scare that happened there Saturday at Evangeline Downs. But again, when we look at this level of racing, I mean, there's some expectation that everything's going to be the same everywhere around the country, and just rule books and things like that can be similar. But we do have to admit that there are minor league levels of racing, and then there are upper level leagues of racing, and they're not the same. And we treat them the same from marketing. Some of it, the purse money at some of these minor tracks have been boosted up over the years because of slots and because of casinos, and because they get some big money and big horses and sometimes come in for big races. Jockeys come in to ride some of these smaller tracks. There's still bush leagues out there. And like, just because they've dressed up the purse level there and every once in a while have a major stakes and bring some big name riders and trainers in from around the country and horses, doesn't stop the fact that it's still a minor league park. It's almost like a minor league event hosted a major league team for a day. That doesn't make the minor league franchise suddenly major league, right? And so I think we've got to kind of look at that. We have to realize that the minor leagues here need to be looked at differently, scrutinized differently. The rules should be a little different in the minor leagues than in the major leagues. And maybe some of the ways that we look at racing is just kind of one broad brush stroke. This kind of sheds a little light on that, of a minor league track with a major league mistake. And I think kind of the way we look at things in racing needs to be a little bit more granular and not so above. I know there's this big, push to have a national office, and there's great national governance needed for many items in horse racing, but also there's a granular look and a statewide look and a even track level within a state, because Fairgrounds and Evangeline Downs are not the same. I know they're both in Louisiana, and I know that the horsemen go from one track to another in some cases, but again, the level of racing at Fairgrounds and the level of racing at Evangeline or Delta, again, aren't the same. And I think we need to look at these tracks a little bit differently. But very interesting topic, very interesting doing, and probably the most talked about thing on the internet, no question, over the last several days, that incident at Evangeline Downs. Let's go to our third topic this week. Churchill Downs racing to the wire. They are getting to the final 4 or 5 days of racing for the 2025 season at Churchill Downs. And they're going to close with a bang Thursday through Sunday this week. Look at some of the major stakes races coming up. On the Thursday Thanksgiving holiday, the $400,000 Falls City. The Clark Handicap for the older horses, grade 2, $600,000 is the Friday feature. On Saturday, you've got a big card, including the $400,000 Kentucky Jockey Club grade 2 there for potential Derby horses next year. We'll also have the Goldenrod on that same card. And then Sunday, they'll wrap things up with a mandatory payout in all the wagering pools. And closing day's feature is the $250,000 Cherokee Mile. Fall City Stakes on Thursday will go as race number 10 as the Thanksgiving feature. Breeders' Cup Distaff third place finisher Regaled is in there, as well as the 1, 2, 3 finishers from the Locust Grove. Let's go back and check out that one, which was won by Royal Spa.
way. Fourth Regal near the back, so they roll off the turn. Royal Spa trying to see it out. Still leads 3/16 to go. Alpine Princess moves into second now. Our Pretty Woman is back to third. Furlong to go. Royal Spa clear by 2.5. Alpine Princess continues to grind away, getting ever so closer, but so is the wire. And Royal Spa takes them wire to wire.
That was back in September, and it was a victory for Royal Spa over the Churchill Downs surface, in which she's become very fond of late. In her last 3 starts at Churchill, she won the Shawnee, she won the Locust Grove, and in between that was second in the Grade 2 Fleur de Lis. So Royal Spa, one of the headliners in race number 10 on the Thanksgiving card at Churchill Downs. On Friday, it's the Clark Handicap, and the Clark Handicap is for the older horses. We've got horses in here like First Mission, a horse who's had success over the track at Churchill Downs. Hit Show, the Dubai World Cup winner from last year, coming off from earlier this year. Hit Show won the Dubai World Cup back in March. The Fayette Stakes winner last time out at Keeneland. Good-looking group in there, including some of the 3-year-olds taking on Elders in there. Gosger's in the field. Chunk of Gold taking on Elders. Rattle and Roll, a horse who's run well in Kentucky throughout the course of his career. He's back off a second place finish in that Fayette Stakes for Kenny McPeak. So good looking field in there. That includes Magnitude, the 3-year-old who earlier this year won the Iowa Derby and was one of the favorites towards the Kentucky Derby after a big win in the Risen Star Stakes before going on the sidelines. So good field in race number 11 on Friday at Churchill Downs. And then Saturday, the card, like we said, includes the Goldenrod Stakes for the 2-year-old fillies at Churchill, as well as the 2-year-old colts and the Kentucky Jockey Club Stakes. And the Kentucky Jockey Club didn't get the largest field in its history, obviously, with a field of just 7. And I think one of the reasons for the smallest field size in there was the impressive Keeneland winner, Further Ado. He won by 20 lengths last time out for trainer Brad Cox. If he repeats this performance, he'll be a Kentucky Jockey Club winner stretching out.
And in the meantime, Further Ado is kicking on into the final furlong. 8 lengths to the good. Vino Vici, a distant second now to Brave Force in third. It is Further Ado well in front of the field. Iran Ortiz Jr., Further Ado wins it.
So from that Keeneland meet, Dr. Kapoor for Ken Ramsey and Safi Joseph, an impressive winner at Keeneland, will go in the Kentucky Jockey Club. And Universe for trainer Kenny McPeak, third in the Champagne, second last time out in the Street Sense as the beaten favorite. Good-looking field in there for the Kentucky Jockey Club. And as for the field for the Goldenrod Stakes, Goldenrod will be race number 11 on the card at Churchill Downs on Saturday. You got Let Me Count the Ways coming off a big win in the Maid of the Mist Stakes for Mike Maker. 2 for 2 lifetime. This is a New York bred who's really sharp. And Life of Joy for Brad Cox. It could be a double for Cox. He's got Further Ado with the 2-year-old colts. Life of Joy going to be a favorite in here off of 2 sharp victories, including the Rags to Riches last time out as the 4-5 favorite. She won her debut by 14 lengths. Life of Joy, one of the horses to watch in the Goldenrod Stakes as well. Could be a big Saturday for trainer Brad Cox. Big weekend of racing at Churchill Downs. And again, as we mentioned at the top, there will be mandatory payouts in the Sunday pick 6. And so all the multi-race wagers, the Super High 5 as well, has to be paid out on all of its bets. So no carryovers will go on beyond the racing on Sunday at Churchill Downs. Also want to let you know at Churchill Downs this weekend, Kentucky Derby Future Wager, pool number 2 will go. It opens on Thursday, runs through Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern. So you can play that Kentucky Derby Future Wager all weekend. All other 3-year-olds, the 9-5 morning line favorite from Mike Battaglia's odds. Ted Nafi, Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner, is the favorite amongst the individual entrants at 6-1. 10-1 on Brandt. We've got Further Ado, who we just saw there and running in the Kentucky Jockey Club at 20-1 in the morning line. You'll see his race on Saturday before the pools close on Sunday. So if you like Further Ado, certainly wait to the end there and see what kind of price you might get. And of course, blackout time for trainer Kenny McPeak, coming off a pretty good effort in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile at 20-1. Also one of the top 4 individual wagering choices in there. Last year, you could have got Sovereignty at 19-1 in this pool before he won the Kentucky Derby the following year. You got to get a big price this far out. That's all I could say. Even 19-1 on Sovereignty sounds kind of good, but When you do it in November and the race isn't until May, I want a much bigger price than even 19-1. But those who backed Sovereignty last year certainly got paid all right on Derby Day, as he ended up 7-1 in the Kentucky Derby, I think was the price on him. So you got a little bit better for sure, but you had to wait a long time and have a lot of things go right between now and the first Saturday in May. Now, not only do we have closing weekend at Churchill Downs coming up this weekend, but we've also got action coming up this weekend from Del Mar, which will close out its 2025 racing season at Del Mar. Look, it's the Hollywood part of the meet here at Del Mar, and you'll see on the stakes schedule a lot of races that were familiar and near and dear to the old Hollywood Park. The Hollywood Turf Cup, the feature on Friday, the Black Friday card. Saturday's program features the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby for $400,000, and then the Grade 1 Matriarch wraps things up on Sunday for the fillies and mares on the turf, $300,000 there. Of course, races like the Hollywood Derby and Matriarch, again, still hold their Grade 1 company. They don't get the horses they used to post Breeders' Cup now, and not many horses are running this time of the year coming out of the Breeders' Cup, but we've got ourselves some decent fields for the Hollywood Turf Cup and for the race on Saturday, the Hollywood Derby. We won't know the field for the Matriarch until Wednesday afternoon. They'll draw that race on Wednesday, but as for horses in the Hollywood Turf Cup, looking at Balnikoff in there, millionaire runner who's won a couple times over the turf at Del Mar, including last out in an allowance prep for trainer Phil D'Amato. So Balnikoff, one of the headliners in the Hollywood Turf Cup. And then in the Hollywood Derby, Graham Motion comes west again. He's had such a great year bringing horses to the West Coast. He's already brought Test Score out there once to win the Twilight Derby. He'll try to do it again in the Hollywood Derby. Here's Test Score, last out, running here at Santa Anita.
Namarone cuts the corner and takes the lead. Tescore out in the center of the course is closing stoutly now. Maz has surfaced through a narrow opening on the rail, but Tescore takes command in the final stages, and it will be Tescore in the Twilight Derby.
One of the main rivals in there could be Tom's Magic. Tom's Magic went up to Woodbine this year, American base, but went up to Woodbine and ran really well for trainer Mike Stidham, running second in the King's Plate and then winning the Breeders' Stakes. Final leg of the Canadian Triple Crown, that one on turf. So we'll see if Tom's Magic can win north and south of the border, heading to Del Mar Saturday, yes, for the Hollywood Derby. That'll be race number 9 on the card. End of the meet at Del Mar. Look, it isn't quite what we see in the Del Mar summer. Doesn't quite have the same, panache and pizzazz. So this is a good end to a Del Mar meet that included the Breeders' Cup. Obviously, you have the Breeders' Cup, then you kind of have a lull, and now you finish here with these Hollywood races over the final couple days of the meet here, the Hollywood Autumn Turf Festival here at Del Mar. So a good way to finish what was a pretty quiet meet in between the Breeders' Cup and now for Del Mar. So looking forward to some better racing there. And then the circuit in Southern California will head to Los Alamitos for a few weeks. And then opening day of the Santa Anita Winter Spring Classic meet comes up on December 26th, traditional day after Christmas opening there at Santa Anita. But Del Mar are going to close out their weekend. Also note on Sunday, not only the Matriarch, but the Bayacoa Stakes will be on that Sunday card. Entries for Sunday at Del Mar, again, will take place on Wednesday. We wrap things up as we do each and every week here on the podcast with our start of tomorrow. We're going to take you to Churchill Downs, a 2-year-old filly, a Juddmonte homebred. Her name is Marjoram, and she's got the spice is right. This was a good look and debut win. After missing the break, Marjoram finishes best of all.
Angling outside, in with a big shot. They're off the turn. Touch of Magic, Kayla's Comet. Marjoram comes up alongside, and the three of them head to the final furlong together. Marjoram's up for the lead right at the 8th pole. Kayla's Comet and Touch of Magic battle on. They're second and third. Marjoram in front, 16th pole. Kayla's Comet's not quite backing down. Marjoram, Kayla's Comet, Marjoram, Kayla's Comet. Marjoram. Good-looking debut there.
She is by Quality Road and out of a mare named Cardamom. And so Marjoram keeps the theme going. And she's got a brother named Spiced Up, a full brother who won the Grade 3 Mahoney Stakes, turf sprinting at Saratoga this year for trainer Bill Mott. So a productive mare in Cardamom. She's got Marjoram here, Spiced Up, a good 3-year-old turning 4. We'll see where we see Marjoram next year. She probably stays in the sprint ranks would be my guess, but this was a good finish here. The time wasn't much much in the come home fractions. They did labor home on the sloppy track there. The last quarter 25-3, the last 16th and 7-1. So did not come home particularly fast. We'll have to speed things up, but with better track conditions and a pedigree to improve, I would expect Marjoram for trainer Michael McCarthy to continue to improve. Be interesting to see where we see her over the course of the winter, maybe out at Santa Anita with the McCarthy string out there with a chance to run towards the Santa Anita Oaks Series. But Marjoram, our star of tomorrow for this week. Let's review our 5 topics on It's Official this week. We started off talking about the Goosebump Award winner, that being oversubscribed off a 380-day layoff to win the Forever Together Stakes for Chad Brown at the Big A. Siren warning, all racing's not the same. Scary incident with the ambulance driving the wrong way on the racetrack up the rail at Evangeline Downs during the American Quarter Horse season meet there. It was a no contest race, but a very scary incident, and it kind of sheds light on how we view racing around the country, from the minor league levels to the major league levels, and what kind of accountability we expect of our racetracks. Churchill Downs races to the wire this week with 4 stakes days coming up: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Stakes scheduled for each day of the holiday weekend, including the Kentucky Derby Future Wager, which will be offered Thursday through Sunday. Del Mar set to close out its 2025 season as well. Hollywood Derby on Saturday in the main event, with the Matriarch to be drawn Wednesday for Sunday. Tess Gore going for a follow-up victory in the Twilight Derby as the headliner at Del Mar this weekend in that Hollywood Derby. And our star of tomorrow is Marjoram, the daughter of Cardamom and the full sister to Spiced Up, a Grade 3 winner. Cardamom for trainer Mike McCarthy is our star of tomorrow. Those 5 topics are now official because our show's creator and handicapper emeritus, Jeff Siegel, and I say so. That's how we play the game here each and every week. In the spirit of Mr. Siegel, it's sad that we don't have him with us this year for Thanksgiving. And one of the things I'm most thankful for is this podcast and working with Jeff so many years on shows like this. And so as we get closer to a holiday weekend, hug your family, show them that you love them. And for your family and friends out there, spend good time and fellowship together through the Thanksgiving weekend, and take care of yourself and others as we look forward to getting back here next week. Now, there will be no Friday podcast this week. We typically do the First Call podcast, Scott Shapiro and I, each and every Friday for weekend handicapping. We'll take off this weekend with the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. It's our one a year that we take off, so 51 a year of those in terms of podcasts each Friday. We'll take off we'll take off First Call this week. I'll be back next Tuesday on the It's Official podcast. Look forward to seeing you then. Between now and then, have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you next week.